The final Shape Collector's Edition is out, and with it, the Entelechy lorebook. This new story dives deep into the history of the precursor species of the Witness, the earliest mention of their final shape and its ideals, the gardener visiting them for a millennia, killing those who didn't believe in their cause and becoming the Witness, an entity whose tunnel vision guides its purpose. Today we dive into these mysteries. The Entelechy lorebook, which means the realization of potential, is great. I've read the whole thing and today we begin analyzing some of its secrets. This video will focus on the big picture, or the precursors, their beliefs, and how the Witness came to be. Other parts of this book will be in future videos, like the devastation caused, the methods, and new species that describe the horror of the Witness, how their civilizations were destroyed by it. In the far reaches of space and time, before humanity's rise or the Traveler's Grace, two entities known as HN and RS engage in a profound discussion on existence and destiny. These dialogues, recovered from derelict vessels and ancient archives, reveal a preoccupation with the final shape, a concept of ultimate perfection or end state that the universe could achieve. Throughout this whole lore book, it's basically Ido going around the system, getting different pieces of data, and trying to put information together about the Witness, what it is, and how it formed. The first document comprises an unsent draft and a ship cargo manifest, both retrieved from the databank of a derelict, unidentified tetrahedral ship found in orbit around a distant star system, left in place due to its heavy damage. The draft is a personal communication from an individual identified as HNW047622, or for the sake of this video, HN, who is involved in a large-scale terraforming project. HN describes arriving at a designated barren system, perfect for their grand vision of creating a garden. They express a desire to move beyond their initial plans, which they now find inelegant, having envisioned a more natural and diverse ecosystem rather than a series of efficient but lifeless greenhouses. Throughout the book, there are various transcripts like this. The first character you have is HN, a character deeply involved in the creation and cultivation of a garden, which is a metaphor for a project of planetary or species-wide transformation. HN, the member of this precursor species, is essentially a gardener, not the Traveler itself, but a being of that race that uses the gifts from the Traveler itself to terraform these worlds in this system, creating different life. You'll see exactly how that works and what happened to their worlds in the card I'm going to read in a little bit. They express a profound connection to their work, a desire for perfection without coercion, and skepticism about the moral rightness of imposing a final shape on others. HN values free will and the natural development of species, and are resistant to using force or manipulation to achieve an ideal state. It's exhilarating. I've wielded the gardener's tools before, but never at such scale. It feels unfair, honestly. You led the development of such marvels, and yet you're leaps away, unable to see the culmination of your work. I know you claim it doesn't matter as long as you know your work is being put to good use, but still, permit me this idle fancy. At this rate, it shouldn't take more than a few centuries before I have enough substrate to work with, and then, well, you'll just have to come and see the summit Pyramidian final shape for yourself, won't you? You then have RS, another key figure who argues in favor of intervention to prevent suffering and achieve the final shape. They advocate for acting ethically to guide others toward improvement, even if it involves discomfort or coercion, believing that the end justifies the means. RS is more willing to use tools at their disposal to direct the evolution of species or systems towards what they see as a greater good. Ido says this was a group or organization of some sort. Mentions of the group across various records suggest that its members were scientists and doctors. Also that these are the oldest of all records she has ever found by an order of magnitude. When they were originally penned, the species that would go on to become the ecumene had not even emerged from primordial ooze. We also get a hint at the technology that this species had after evolving for a millennia with the Traveler. They had something called the Observatory where they could look into the future, see certain possibilities. Also glass minds, which could be some sort of AI. The discussion between these two characters revolves around the concept of the final shape, a theoretical pinnacle of existence or societal structure that they both seem to strive for, yet deeply contest on how to achieve. We mustn't abandon the path to the final shape simply because it is difficult. Difficult? You are being willfully obtuse. Difficult might describe a sustained effort or self-denial done with intent and care for one's own well-being. What you are describing is coercion. A moment's coercion to prevent a millennia's suffering. We can see what will happen if we sit idly by. If we choose to do nothing and in our inaction allow this carnage to continue, then we are complicit. Thus, the ethical choice is to act. At what cost? With what means? Would you advocate for the use of violence? Will you approve the murder of those who disagree? Will you and your merciful, penitent, benefic cause lesser harm for greater good? No, never. The purpose and the means are inseparable. It is simple teleology. We are not advocating for needless cruelty. There are countless methods of intervention at our disposal with compassion as their guiding pillar. The transition, uplifting enlightenment would be uncomfortable, naturally, but the alternative is to sit idly by and watch the inevitable extinction of a species, an extinction we could prevent. If the final shape is the greatest good imaginable, then its rightness should be self-evident. It should be so clear to anyone and anything that comprehends it that we should never need to do more than share the information for them to reach the same conclusion. That we have failed to do so, even among the consensus, suggests imperfections in our own understanding. If we cannot prove an apodictic final shape even to each other, to our own kin whom we strive to understand as well as our own selves, then how can we possibly declare it fit to teach to others? What good is perfection if it is purely theoretical? All concepts are refined through practice. If we focus on ourselves to the exclusion of all others, if we refuse to help others and thereby pursue our perfect happiness at the cost of their interminable pain, what do we call that, if not selfishness? Humility, acceptance of our own limited perspective. Indifference to suffering? I am not indifferent. I would gladly endure pain if doing so would help others. It is a different matter entirely to force it upon someone else, even for the sake of another. An improperly healed bone must be rebroken before it can set properly. An infected wound must be lanced. Do you abstain from uprooting weeds, even if they threaten to strangle your garden? If some suffering is inevitable, then surely it is better to seek the maximum good from it. If the choice is between greater and lesser evils, then the choice itself is flawed. I refuse to participate. I agree with you in theory, but we do exist purely in the theoretical. This suffering is already happening now, all the time, everywhere we look. Come and see me, and I will show you the observatory's readings. Such sights as we have seen, my friend, make me sick to my soul. I thought the observatory could only see possibilities, the future branches of past visible light readings. We've made improvements. The glass mines trim the excess branches. What we see now are the strongest paths, and in seeing they become true. Then tell me what you have seen. I gain nothing from running from the truth, no matter how uncomfortable. Cities turning on themselves in a frenzy of self-destruction. Children offering up parents in superstitious sacrifice to bloodied gods. An entire people who would boil off their own atmosphere rather than let their neighbors enjoy fresh air. Great waves drowning worlds, bodies which do not decompose, for everything, down to the very bacteria, has died as well. Machine plagues carving their prediction machines into moons. Your garden destroyed as the observatory saw it, so it came to pass. I apologize, I was unkind. I was wrong to bring up old hurts. As you say, sometimes an infected wound must be lanced before it can heal. You should not be ashamed of your physician's instinct. I have meditated on your words. I sat in my ship, keeping company with the pain I felt when I saw my worlds burning. That terrible loss. You would prevent such a thing from happening again. You have always wished to protect others from harm, and I honor that. But I have reached a different conclusion from you. As I saw the ruin of my great work, my thoughts traced a different path. If the final shape is the greatest good, then it must be enduring, incontrovertible, self-fulfilling. That my garden could be destroyed suggests that it was not a final shape after all. Perhaps the ships which came to burn it down understood its final shape better than I. Are you suggesting that the final shape of that system was its destruction, for it to be left a blasted ruin? Is it not a possibility? Then what we have seen through the observatory might as well be the final shape too. Suffering and misery, anarchy, endless self-consuming hedonism, utter sterility. How can any of that be considered a greatest good? The core of the final shape is improvement. Consider the virus, my friend, the parasite, the predator. These things that exist only by taking from others. To these things, improvement may well entail causing greater and greater harm to others, not out of malice, but as a simple fact of existence. When you eradicate an illness, are you stamping out a microscopic final shape? Should we care less for the final shape of a disease simply because it is smaller than us, or because it does us harm? We have all studied our histories. We know what we are capable of, what we have done. What if the nihilists are right, and our final shape is our own destruction? Are you seriously considering the words of a fringe group of self-flagellating pessimists? This is pure nihilistic indulgence. Abdication of responsibility. The existence of past evil does not invalidate future good. Should we deny what we can do because of what we have done? We of the penitent have asked similar questions and reached our own answer. We have survived unimaginable suffering, even at one another's hands. The gardener encourages our growth and improvement day by day. Who better to understand the struggle of others and guide them out of those miserable warrens into the light of day? We can help the whole universe to be better than they are, just as we are always striving to be better tomorrow than we are today. We can help them, and they will go on to help others. The good we do can compound, just as evil has in the past. And yet we, the first chosen of the gardener, cannot agree on our own way. The gardener offers us no guidance, no principles with which to use the gifts it gives us, no reassurance for the doubts that plague us, and no answers for our questions. Why have we been chosen? Why does the gardener, in its power and wisdom, not achieve perfection itself? If my garden was not meant to be destroyed, why did it not stop the invaders? And why does it allow its gifts to be misused? It did not correct the profusion, bountiful swarm on their path to their great fatal error. It did not stop the conqueror's primacy sovereign from using the gifts it granted for subjugation. Are we to accept that these two were meant to happen? If you reject the notion that destruction can be a final shape, how are we to accept that the gardener allowed us to make such grievous mistakes? Even after all these millennia, there is much we do not understand about the gardener. Perhaps we will not understand until we have achieved the final shape for ourselves. And when we have reached the final shape, will it all make sense? Will we all be able to live in a universe where people act as they have always acted for the self-evident good? Where evil does not exist because we do not allow it? Where all are aligned without suffering or doubt? This isn't like you, my friend. I am coming to see you. All will be well. So you can see the different ideals between these characters. In further dialogue, HN says they were the first chosen by the Gardener, and it gave them power. The Gardener stayed with the Precursors for a millennia, so way longer than any known species like humanity or the Entelechy. The species also had a governing body of sorts called the Consensus. Kinda strange given it's the same name as our city's government, but yeah. Anyway, HN and RS sought the final shape, and they would seem to be higher-ups among this Precursor species. Ido speculates that others weren't involved in this process of the final shape. They don't treat their people like equals, they treat them like herd animals. So their consensus was a group or governing body that has embraced the concept of guiding the universe toward a final shape. They have decided to act decisively, even violently, against those who oppose their vision, signaling a shift from debate to action. You also might have heard some words like penitent, and among them there seem to be different factions or philosophical groups with varying views on the concept of the final shape and the means of achieving it. The penitent seem to align with the idea of guiding the universe toward perfection through action, whereas the nihilist and solipsists are portrayed as having been eliminated for their opposing views. In the end, the consensus won out with their views. One group that believes in one purpose. They would not listen to others and would begin their path toward the final shape. Now, lots of time has passed between these different entries between the characters, and after their initial messages and argument, it seems RS just left, and before becoming the witness, HN wanted to reach out one last time. I composed this message in secret. The rest of the consensus would not understand. They do not know you as I did, but they could. It is in that hope that I reach towards you now. My friend, the consensus has won. Yesterday the penitent voted. The nihilist and solipsist have been destroyed. We will exuviate and shepherd the universe to its final shape. We will prune away its dead branches and coax forth its full potential. Even as I say those words, I feel the old doubts crawling through my thoughts again. But it has been long, and longer still, since you renounced the consensus and set off into the cosmos. You have not seen the violence that visited our shores, a terrible reflection of that ancient history which we believed was behind us. Though we were steadfast in our position and would have continued to argue it, however long it might take, there were dangerous elements, subversives and defectors. We did not strike first, nor did we choose our response lightly. It had been so long since I wielded pruning shears, I had forgotten how. My hand shook. I could only imagine how you would have looked at me. But it's over now. What has been done is done. They were the last, and now we are all in consensus. If I wished to persuade you with words alone, I would have not told you this. You have steadfastly abhorred such measures since they were first proposed. I do not tell you this to shock or intimidate you. I tell you this because I respect you. Of everyone I have ever known, you have been fiercest in your compassion, most keenly aware of the gap between means and ends. If you return, if you join the consensus, then I will know our cause is true. That after all this time, we have finally found our apodictic truth. I will discard myself with no regrets. I do not say this to put my finger on the scale of your decision, only to inform you of the situation. After our exuviation, we will no longer know the shape of your absence. What we are becoming will not be capable of doubt or dissent. It never will have been capable of such things. We will forget our pain, our strife, our petty grudges, our prejudices. It will no longer exist, and therefore will have never existed. Do you understand? There is not much time. Now that we are in consensus, our progress is unhindered. The veil unravels before us. The fundamental principles we have long hoped for are woven in its threads. And when we have completed the process and thrown off our lesser selves, we will be perfect. Even so, I cannot help but nurture this seed of heresy, the grit which I hope will be subsumed by the pearl, that what we become will be lesser if it's made without you. How could perfection be lesser? Yet the feeling burns in my veins, so I must share it with you. I confess this in selfishness. I do not want to forget you. Thus began the creation of the witness. They mention that word exuviate multiple times, meaning shed. Forgetting their pain, strife, grudges, prejudices, none of that will exist, therefore it will have never existed. The tale between these characters does make you wonder, why are their names spelled out like this with different numbers and letters? And they obviously had different ideals of the final shape, with RS, straight up leaving, going somewhere else in the cosmos. So what happened to that character? Most, if not all, of the species were in consensus and became the witness. Those who didn't believe in the cause were straight up killed. RS seems to have survived though. In the quest for that final shape, entities like the witness manipulate not just the fabric of reality, but their own memories and identities. They choose what to remember and what to erase, crafting themselves into beings of singular purpose. This self-modification raises questions about the nature of identity and the price of perfection. As we'll discuss in future videos, the witness's goal isn't merely to reshape the cosmos, but to do so in a way that maximizes fear and desolation among those it considers beneath its concern. So there you have a little overview on the witness, its precursor species, and how it came to be. The lore book released in this collector's edition has lots of information we'll be diving into in the coming days and weeks, so definitely be sure to subscribe to the channel. Anyway, I thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video.